that was the point where I wasn't using to get loaded no more. Like I was trying to numb everything, but there was no numbness.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the #1 mental health and addiction podcast, the Hopeaholics. I am your girl, Natalie Eva Marie, and these are my boys.
I'm Chad.
Hi, I'm Shane.
Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow us on our socials and wherever you get your podcasts.
Got a new episode dropping every Monday and Thursday. Please come check it out.
This episode is brought to you by the Infinity Group. You guys, if you or a loved one is suffering, please call us today. The number is right here on the screen. We are here for you 24/7. Now, let's get into the episode.
Damon.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Hopeaholics
Yeah, bro,
Podcast.
welcome, man. Welcome. You're all tatted up head to toe?
From my right ankle all the way up. Yeah.
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 Is that just all of a sudden, or is this over a number of 10,
Man, I
15
started
years?
when I was like 16.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where was the first one? Who was the first one? Like, what was it like in an alley somewhere?
No. My buddies from high school, they were getting like $100 pieces, like their last names.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be different. So I wanted to go get something different. So there was this guy named Martin. He worked out of his back house.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring.
Yeah. So we went there, and there'd be like 4 of us just
lined
in
up.
there, we're just hanging out.
Yeah.
And then so I was like, you know what? I want this little like some kind of like monster like poking out of my, looking out of my ankle,
Yeah.
my right leg. And then from there it was just like $100, $150.
Yeah.
But we were really cool. So I'd go and we just smoke weed all day, and which I didn't like because so many breaks. But then I would go piece by piece by piece, and then I wish I would have slowed down, And then I went from artist to artist to artist as I got older.
Yeah.
So now I have one guy. Oh man, his name's Johnny Tats. He's from my town. This is my town, and he's
Really good.
Yeah. And so I just got another portrait from him about 3 weeks ago of my oldest son.
Good for you. How many kids?
I have 3 right now.
That's good for you, bro.
Yeah.
Same wife or same girl or?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's rare today.
Yeah, we've been together since high school, and then since high school, the
I know.
and then forever, and then finally, once the light turned on for me for treatment, rehab, recovery.
Yeah.
I asked her to marry me, and
Nice.
we just had our anniversary. I think
How many years?
17th, about 4 or 5 years now.
Nice. Good for you, bro.
Yeah,
Good for you. Tell us about your younger days.
Sounds just like you, bro.
That's what I'm saying.
Huh?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So my younger days, it was basically like my mom. What I realized.
First of all, I want to make everyone clear because I want to get to a demographic here.
Okay.
We want to really help Native Americans.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
thank
first
you.
of all, and first and foremost, you're a Native American. What tribe are you with?
I'm from the Saboba Band of Luceño Indians.
Luceño Indians.
Yeah,
Okay. So tell us about your childhood, about how that was. You know what I mean in your area.
Yeah. So growing up, I'm what they call a city Indian, a town Indian, because I grew up in town. And so when I grew up with my mom raised me, the best that she can, And so my dad's Native American. He's from Saboba. His dad, my grandpa, is actually from Pechanga. And so my grandma is she's from Saboba. So I grew up I'm half Native, half Mexican. And so with my mom, she raised me. My dad was in my life when I was, a baby and stuff. And then whatever happened, they split up or whatever happened. And so my dad was kind of in and out for a little bit, and then I want to say more out, And so growing up with my mom, I think around I don't know how old I was. I was really, really young. And that's when things started going real rocky. There was some trauma that happened. So when that situation happened, CPS stepped in my life, and I remember all that. It's trauma.
Yeah,
it's
bro.
Trauma.
It is.
It's trauma, and so when that happened, that's when I remember it so vividly. And so after we had court, that's when I, in a way, kind of first met my dad. Yeah, I kind of first met my dad. And so I lived with him up in Saboba at my aunt's house. And I think that lasted, I don't know how long, not long at all. And then my mom got custody of me again and my sisters. Yeah, and so from her, with my mom, it was real family, real tight family. You know, my grandma, my grandpa, you know, I was the first grandson, the oldest. And I remember a lot being with my grandma, my grandpa, and yeah, with my mom too. But again, growing up with her, there was a lot of trauma, you know, a lot of trauma. So growing up, you know, I didn't even know my dad really. I didn't know my aunts, you know what I mean, his sisters. So I remember like just walking up and down the streets, you know what I mean, with friends or whatever from school, and they would like pull over. Oh, that's little Damon, because I'm a junior.
Yeah.
And so that's little Damon, or little Day, they called me. And hey, I'm your aunt. Like, oh, hi, and here's some money, because they got per cap money.
Yeah.
So, you know, here's some money. I'm like, oh, thank you, you know. And so never really grew up at all with my dad's side of the family, you know. So I wasn't raised in any kind of culture or traditions, anything like that, you know. And so with my mom, you know, she was trying to raise 3 kids the best she can, you know, on welfare, you know, on welfare, you know. And so that, after doing, you know, the steps and looking at my patterns and looking at my behavior and all that stuff, the trauma, you know, it made me realize that I struggled with that for a long time, you know, like I didn't fit in, you know. And so a lot of my friends growing up, they were like, oh, we didn't even know you're a native until I got my first check. You know what I mean? We didn't even really know you're a native, you know what I mean? And it never changed a thing. It never changed a thing, you know what I mean? And so they never looked at me different or with their hands out, stuff like that. But when I started getting closer to the age of 18, my plan was, okay, well, I'm 18, I'm gonna get my check. I'm gonna drop out. I dropped out of school at 18, never did anything in school from 8th grade on, never did anything. So I figured, okay, I dropped out, I'm gonna wait till I'm 18, I'm gonna get my per cap, and I'm just gonna live my life, you know. And I had all these big plans, you know, blah, blah. And so they changed the rule, the law. They changed the law that you have to have your GED or diploma. So that canceled me out. And I had no drive whatsoever, no drive to go back to school. I tried to go back to adult ed or whatever, and I just wasn't committed. Like I just no. And then, but see, what happened was when I started getting close to that age, when my family knew I was, you know, on the verge of getting that per cap, a very close family member was like, well, we're just kind of waiting for Damon to get his stuff together to get that money so he can take care of us. And I heard that. And so I was like, all right, like, and that hurt, you know, that hurt. And so from there, another close relative was always saying stuff, well, you need to get your money and take care of your mom. Like, you owe your mom. And I'm like, well, if it was like that, like, then I owe my aunts and you know, the ones that were around and everybody else that stepped in and was, you know, trying to raise me too, you know, and trying to take care of me. Like, how are you gonna try to tell me I owe you as a parent, or, you know, a relative, I owe you for trying to take care of me or taking care of me, you know? And that hurt, you know, that scarred me for a long time, you know. And so in rehab, I think the second time in rehab, there was this lady, a nurse. She was married to some native brother from Saboba, and she was like, you know, you don't get your per cap. Like, I said, no. And she came back to me like 3 weeks, you know, I was in treatment. She came back to me with like a stack of paper. Fill this out. Like, I did this school for another guy up there. I'll help you get your money. And I was like, okay. So it was some Christian school online. So I got the test, and it was so simple. I ended up, I made a deal with my house manager. I said, if you take this test for me and make it look like I took it, I'll break you off. And the scumbag drug addict I am, you know, I never paid him, so I owe him that immense amount of money,
no.
Know? And so I was doing an H&I panel, and he sent me my test scores, right? And I said, you got to make it look like if it was me that took it. So there was all A's and C's, and you know, and I'm like, all right. And that was my downfall. Because what happens on the reservation, and it's, you know, what happens is if you have no money management skills and don't know how to pay taxes, and you get that money and you're not in the right state of mind or have a strong heart, like you're literally giving me all this money, and I have no like,
Bro,
you know what I mean?
That's a big problem everywhere. Even in Canada, they're just throwing money at the problem, and you can't just do that.
Well, it's the same problem that people that come from wealthy families have.
Yeah,
throwing money at
you know, the child, they've never had to. It's a little bit different because at least you had to struggle.
Right.
You know, at least you had to struggle.
Right.
Some of them never had to struggle.
Yeah.
So then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so damn.
Yeah, it's almost like if you have no skills at that,
and nobody to help,
it's like setting you up for disaster. And that's what happened to me. So what was a trip was I always told myself, like, because I've seen it with my cousins, and there's a lot of what they call it in the Well Variety book, they call it intergenerational trauma.
Yes.
You know, and so I watched my cousins just, you know, as I got older in my teens, you know, I started hanging out more with my cousins. They were older, you know, going up there on my little pedal bike and whatever, but and we can get into that a little bit. But so one day I was at my grandma's house, you know, back at my grandma's house, and my grandpa goes, you know, we were smoking weed together, and he goes, I know why you don't get your money. And I was like, why? And he goes, because you know what's going to happen, and you know what you're going to do with it. And at that time I was, you know, strung out on meth, you know, and I told myself that before I told anybody, you know, when I get that money, it's going to be a downfall for me. So you give a drug addict, you know, all that money for the rest of his life, like with no skills at all, like good luck. And it was a struggle, man. And it still kind of is, you know, my wife helped out a lot with that, like showed me how to pay bills, and I just give her the money and she would pay all the bills. And so now, you know, now that I'm, you know, walking this path, like it got a lot better. It got a lot better. You know, now I have savings in my saving account, you know, and so it's a lot better, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you got back to you. I mean, it looks like, because we went outside, we did a little prayer.
Mm-hmm.
You prayed to the Creator.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like you really got into the Native American spirit.
Yeah.
You picked
Yeah.
that up.
Excuse me. So what, me and my friend, Victor, the guys you met Victor?
Yeah, Victor.
We're talking about that on the way up. And so with the culture, with the traditions, there's so much into it. You know? And so the blessing, the miracle that happened for me was this last time in treatment, you know, 9 years ago when I was at the Betty Ford Center. What came down to it was now finally I'm understanding what it's like to have God in your life, a higher power in your life, you know? And so we were just talking about this, and an elder taught me this. He pours water for the sweat lodge. He's a sun dancer. And what was awesome was, I go back and forth in my mind like that, like, oh, should I just be doing Well Variety? Should I just be doing ceremony? You know, well, I'm going to try just doing that, you know, but I always got back to my roots, which was the 12 steps. Mm-hmm. So one day I asked this elder, man, because he would send me Well Variety, and then he'll send me the Just for Today.
Yeah.
So I said, how do you apply that to your life? And he goes, well, if it wasn't for the 12 steps, I wouldn't know about the culture. And he goes, and the culture brings me back to the 12 steps, and the light bulb went on for me. So if it wasn't for, and so if I wasn't, if my higher power didn't place me right where he needed to place me, I wouldn't know. So once I got out of treatment, just doors opened, and I think it was my uncle. He was my dad's best friend. And so, you know, as natives, we call women we don't know, like elder women, call them aunties or uncle, you know. And I seen him, and I think it was him or my cousin Kelly, who you know, rest in peace, you know, taught me, said, you need to go to the sweat lodge, go to the lodge, the ceremony. And so what was funny, because I wasn't raised in Saboba, you know what I mean? And so my uncle goes, you gotta drive the back road. I don't know what the back road is. And it's this main road, you know, the main road. And so and he goes, you got to make a left at Stacia's house and da, 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 da. And I drove past that house about 4 times and my anxiety kicked in. So I pulled over and I'm freaking out. And this guy was down the road at the community pool.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally I seen the lodge and I pulled in there and I was nervous. Like, am I going to see somebody here that don't like me, you know? And my dad's other best friend was there, you know, and he changed his life too through the lodge, through the culture, and through the 12 steps. And so that was my first introduction to the ceremony.
That's awesome.
And then from there, my other uncle, who's from Palma, he's a ceremonial man, and I got introduced to him. And so he broke it down to me how we're related and who, you know, he teaches them, you know what I mean? And it's passed on and passed on. And so, and then from there, you know, and so for Lucenio, we do 3 rounds, you know, sweat 3 rounds and have our own Lucenio teachings and traditions. And then I went and sweated with my uncles, who are sun dancers, and they sweat Lakota. And so that's 4 rounds, four rounds.
So explain that to us.
So the way I was taught, and again, there's so much into it. And the way I was taught was so that lodge represents Mother Earth, and so it's a purification ceremony. So we go into that lodge, and you know, they call them the grandfathers, the rocks. They're in a fire, they're lava rocks, and they're heating up, and we go in that lodge, and you know, there's the first round, you know. The rocks that are put down are representing the 4 directions, you know, the north, east, south, and west. That's the Lucenio way, I believe. And so they bring in the 4 rocks, and then like a total of 7 at first to represent the elements. And so we're sitting in that lodge, and they bring in, you know, how many other rocks they want, you know, 14, 10, you know, and we're sitting there, and the sweat leader will start pouring water, you know, and all that steam hitting. So that steam represents Mother Earth's breath, and it's breathing on us. So we're in there singing, praying, you know, and so once that first round is over, they open up the door, and then all that smoke is taking away your prayers up to the Great Spirit, you know, to your higher power. You know, the way I was taught by these men, they open those doors for anybody. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. And there's this man, Don Coyes, who does the Wild Variety. He was sharing something about a talking circle, and he says when those 4 directions, those 4 colors, you know, red, yellow, white, and black, they represent the 4 nations. And he says, you know, it represents all 4 colors, all 4 nations, and there's one nation, and that's all of us together, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so that's pretty much what it represents, you know, purification ceremony. What I learned to do through the Well Variety was you take your 4-step, to the lodge, and you ask for forgiveness, or you admit to your higher power, you know, the Creator in there, you know, and that's how you kind of work your 4-step. And there's these things, they're called prayer ties. And it's a red cloth, and you get your tobacco, because tobacco is one of our sacred medicines. And so you pray that tobacco, and you put it in that prayer tie, whatever your prayers are, and you take it to the lodge with you. And that's what I've been doing the last few years is I'll take my character defects, you know, I'll write them all down, or make one for each. You know, if I act out on anger or whatever it is, which is a big one, you know, higher Creator, please take away my anger. And I go in there and sweat with it, you know, or I forgot what step it is, but when you write down the people you've harmed, I write them down, you know, and I take it in there, and you know, that's how I apply that to my life, my recovery, you know. But if it wasn't for the 12 steps for recovery, I wouldn't know about, you know, learning to understand more about the culture, you know.
Yeah, it is.
That's a really powerful. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
Yeah,
because it's. You know, I told you outside that I have done a sweat lodge before, and it's very spiritual, very powerful.
I've never done one.
No.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it, though.
Well, again, the lodges that I go to, they welcome anybody.
Yeah, I'm in, bro.
Everybody,
I'm in.
You know,
and
it is a little bit of a drive, you know, from here, an hour and a half or so. But it's well worth it.
Yeah.
It's well worth it. I was in an AA meeting. I've been doing a lot of Zoom. There's this meeting. It's out of, I think, San Diego. And this lady, this young woman, or I don't know what she is, but she was sharing that she was going to a very, very powerful ceremony. And there was another guy on there who knew one of the brothers from Palma, who runs Intertribal Treatment. So it's a small world.
I've contacted
small world.
Intertribal Treatment.
Yeah.
I think Roy or someone. No, sorry, wrong place. This is
Okay.
Native American Veterans Association.
Oh wow!
That I'm
Okay,
working
okay,
with actually.
nice,
Roy. Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. So that's the way I was taught, which was they welcome everybody
Good
and
for you,
anybody.
man.
Yeah.
Good for you.
How long is the ceremony usually?
It could be a couple hours. It's funny because when I go to my uncle's house in Palma, it's about an hour drive there, 20-minute drive there, and he says, we're gonna get him by 7. We don't get into about 8, and by the time I get home,
It's midnight.
It's 1 o'clock in the
1 o'clock,
morning.
yeah.
Yeah. And so sometimes in Saboba, we're out in 2 hours, but it's more reasonable hours. What's beautiful is my uncle does a New Year's sweat, a sunrise sweat, a ceremony. So we go in about 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning or so. And when we come out, it's a new year, and sunrise,
You know what? It's so important that you found yourself.
Yeah. And
that-
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That you
Yeah.
accepted, because everyone's looking for a group of people. That's what sobriety is. You're looking for God and like-minded people. And you gravitated towards your Indian culture, Native American culture, and you opened up your heart to it, man. You're working on
Yeah.
the reservation. Now, what are you
Yeah.
doing right now?
What do you mean?
Like work-wise, you're on the reservation, you're working, case manager or something?
I'm a certified peer support specialist now. Yeah. So when I first started counseling, so how it all started, if you don't mind me.
No, bro.
So how it all started was every time, the 4 times I was in treatment, I went to Hemet Valley Recovery Center. And that was based on because one day there was this show on MTV with Travis Barker, and I think it was Travis Barker or DJ AM or something like that. He was taking people to that treatment facility. And I was like, oh, okay, so now I know where to go. And I live in Hemet, so I went there, and it was basically a rinse and repeat type thing. You know what I mean? Like I went in there, and all the whole nightmare of going in, that built up to go in there, and I get in there, and oh man, I'm gonna stay sober the rest of my life, and all that. And when I was first in there, man, I was just running on pure fear and character defects. So there was about 4 Native brothers, no, a Native brother and like 3 Native women, and that guy took me under his wing. And so when we're all on the other side of the facility, one of the women brought alcohol. So for me, alcohol wasn't my problem. So I was drinking alcohol, came up with this big old BS lie, and then I left. And I was back in like 4 months, and in between that time, more wreckage, and so, but every time I get out, I would from the second to the 4th time in there, I would go back and volunteer.
Yeah.
I'd volunteer, and
you were getting it.
Yes, I
Slowly
volunteered.
creeping into your
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
Bro.
And so that I had a purpose doing that. I'd be, there'd be 50-year-old men, women walking in there through the door, and I'm the first guy they see, and I'm walking them around, and and so I kept doing that. So, but I kept relapsing, and coming back, whatever. But they've always kept the doors for me open.
Did you know a guy named Steve there that runs the place?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah. He's a good man.
Yeah.
And Sherry.
Yep.
Yeah. He knows me very, very well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Small world.
It's small world. I mean, that's all I've done for my entire life.
Yeah.
Adult sober life is work in drug and alcohol treatment. And I at 2 years clean and sober, I opened up Hope by the Sea with my dad, and that was 22 years ago.
Oh, with your dad.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Man.
My whole family eventually came. My mom, my sister, ex-wife.
Oh, okay.
And we
Through the program or working with you?
working with me.
Working.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And that's what Peter took you on a tour of Hope by the Sea. That's 22 years of us building and growing and creating this
Grinding.
place. Grinding. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's funny is when I go back to the Betty Ford Center, and when I was walking through here, I was like, man, I wish there was a rehab for people that are sober, because this place,
Yeah, right.
This place is beautiful,
I know.
man. You know,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. But the last time I came out of the Betty Ford Center,
And you stayed sober since that one, right?
since Betty Ford,
Yeah.
9 years now.
9 years.
9 years.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. And so when I came out of the Betty Ford Center, I got plugged in with them, alumni, and then I right back to Hemet Valley, and so I was pretty much like a full-time job, but I had that purpose. And my wife goes, if you're going to do this, like, you need to, you're basically there full-time, you need to like make this a career or something, and so they were pushing for it. And what's beautiful about that place, and as for most addicts, they get clean and sober, and then the first thing they want to do is become a counselor, and so they were pushing for me to do it. Like, you're running groups, like, just go to the school. The school's right across the street. The counselor taught it, but the fear, the fear, I gotta do tests, like,
Yeah.
And so I went to school in there, and it was pretty simple. And then the next phase was to do the internship. And right when I needed to find the internship, Indian Health called me, the counselors that used to put me in treatment. We have this position open, like, and she goes, because I'm like, do I have the job? Like, I don't know how to do computers and she goes, you'd be pretty dumb if you don't take this opportunity.
Wow.
Nice.
So I got my first job, and I was there in 2019, and from there, it was good. It was rough. It was trying to adjust to it, and I caught on. I caught on, and then from there, I got sick. I got sick. I got diagnosed with a very, very severe lung condition, and then from there, I think before that, I went through some hard stuff. My dad passed away.
Oh, shit.
My dad passed away. I got diagnosed with a lung condition, and then all in the same time period, from December to November, or November to December.
Yeah.
My dad died. I got diagnosed with a lung condition. I almost died, and then I could have died, and then my cousin was murdered. My cousin was murdered all in that same time frame. So I went into what I just went crazy. Like, I went crazy. Like, I was I was going through it, and then they couldn't hold my position no more, because I was on leave, and I just lost the drive. And so I was playing hooky from work, like, oh, I'm sick. They knew I had a lung condition. Okay, stay home. And they said, hey, we can't keep your position no more, man. So from there, I just started going down a bad place. Mentally. Yeah. I wasn't gonna relapse, but I was in relapse mode.
Yeah.
And so I started seeing a therapist, and my director, who's a psychologist, he started seeing me. And so when I went to see my first therapist, he was like, I'm sharing all this stuff with you, the trauma, and he asked me this weird question, and I'm sharing with him, I'm breaking down, and he goes, Damon, do you believe you deserve a good life? But when he said that, it was so weird, because I wasn't sure if this guy was asking me if I wanted to take my life. So I tripped out on it for a while. Right. So I went and seen a psychiatrist, and they were diagnosed me with at that time, it was bipolar tendencies. Yeah. And then in depression, and I'm like, depression, like, I'm not crying, I'm not sad. Like, to me, depression was on the couch, can't move type stuff. And he goes, there's different forms of depression, Damon. And he goes, you're manic right now. So kept going back, and then they put me on meds. They put me on Seroquel. And I wasn't, and then I'm on prednisone. I've been on prednisone for a long time because of the lungs. Yeah. So you don't sleep, and then you're on steroids basically. And I'm already impulsive enough and have anger issues, and so it was nuts. But they put me on that medication, and I was not sleeping for weeks. I was manic, and I was rolling around with a loaded firearm, clean and sober. And I was up at 2 a.m. I was trying to do this whole fitness thing and count your macros and all that. And so I'm up at 2 a.m. My trainer's up at 2 a.m, making eggs, and then trying to go to the gym. And it was nuts. But, man, I was cruising around the streets. I was cruising in the canyon and the reservation, which I had no business being, because a lot goes down back there, a lot. And so I'm doing this at 6 years clean and sober.
Loaded.
No,
I mean, gun-wise.
With a gun,
With
you know.
loaded.
And my excuse was, well, I legally own it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know why
You're just
they
looking for
gave me
trouble.
that, but I legally own it.
Yeah.
You know, so if I get pulled over, you know, I know it ain't gonna be that bad. And I remember my boss goes, "Hey man, I need a doctor's note," and I haven't been to the doctor, you know, and so I was leaving the res, and about 5 a.m, going home, trying to shower, go get this, you know, doctor's note. And I remember calling my sponsor, at that time, it was my grant sponsor. And I told him, excuse my language, but I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing right now. Like, I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what the fuck I'm doing right now. I need help. And so I seen my therapist, my old boss, and I told him what I was doing, you know, and he goes, "Do you have a gun on you right now?" And I said, "No." And I left, and he goes, "Hey, man, I'm sending you back to the Betty Ford Center." So here I am, 6 years clean and sober. And I'm like, let's go. But I'm selfish, you know what I mean? So, like, my kids are 8. My one kid, I think my oldest was 8 or something like that. And I have a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, and just got out of treatment, you know, basically. And my girlfriend, she was my girlfriend, or my wife. Mm-hmm. She goes, "You're not going back to treatment?" Like, and so they and that's when COVID hit. So they had me in is it an outpatient through Zoom, and just to, you know, get another kickstart, you know, restart my battery, you know. And so, so then they got a grant, and they opened up the peer support position, and you know, my boss like, "I want you back. This position's for you," and when I read the you know, what the duties are, I was like, this is it. You know, this is it. The first thing it said was you need to have a year or 3 years clean and sober, and be willing to share your lived experience. And I said, I'm all for it. Like, sign me up. Let's do this. And so I got on it, and then the requirement was to go through CCAP, get certified. You know, I waited about a year, and then I went through NAMI or Calamasa Medical, whatever. Took the exam, my first actual exam. I didn't cheat.
In your life.
Yeah.
Easy, bro.
Yeah. And I was, oh my God, it was a
At
nightmare.
32, at
it was such a
32.
nightmare because my work computer wasn't working. Like, I had to reschedule, wasn't working. I was 100 miles an hour home. My sister's computer wasn't working. Like, I'm freaking out, cussing, screaming. I finally figured out how to do it. And I'm freaking out, and I scored like a 90 in crisis. And so, and I passed it, man. I passed it with flying colors.
Oh, good for you, bro.
And then the next step was, it said to become qualify for a supervisor. So I went and did that, and now I qualify for a supervisor. Who would have known that, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's and that just led to more doors, you know what I mean? And now it's not, I'm not even really in the office anymore. Like, I'm in the community, you know, and I'm going to youth facilities, and you know, we see patients in treatment, and I go and take them that ceremony, you know, and I've been blessed with, from my teachers, you know, and you know, how to use the medicine, and you know, wing them down with the wings we've been blessed with, you know, and learning to do that, you know, and do it in the right way, which is, you know, how I was taught from a good man was there's no right or wrong way. You just come from the heart. You know, and so it's blown up, you know, it's blown up. And I don't claim to be, you know, I let it be known when they ask me to come do blessings, you know, at the schools or events, you know, whatever. I don't claim to be no medicine man or spiritual healer. I do what was taught. And I questioned myself for a long time, like, am I allowed to do that? And before I can ask that, one of my uncles that I work with, he goes, "That's your right." He goes, "That's your right to do that. You know, you've been around, like you do that, you know." And so it's blown up, man. It's blown up.
I'm so happy for you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you, you know. Thank you.
Not only statistically, I'm just going on stupid statistics, because yes, of course, anyone follows these rules and regulations, we're all going to make it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you're not Native American, Native Americans have a bigger hole to dig themselves. That's just how it is.
Yeah,
We have more trauma.
Yeah.
There's more abuse,
Yeah.
sexual and verbal.
Yeah.
The reservations are, let's face it, it's
Yeah.
not accustomed to a good lifestyle. It's getting better.
Yeah.
But a lot of bad things are happening on the reservations. So your trauma, PTSD from a young age, digging a hole. So it takes a lot more to get, you know what I mean?
No, right. Yeah. And when it's a small, a reservation. So there's a town, there's Hemet San Jacinto, and then over the bridge is a reservation.
Yeah.
So, the res been there for as long as they've been there for, years, ever.
Yeah.
And so what's a trip is, my mom and her generation, they all grew up with people from the res, and so back then it was very, very, very scary.
Very scary.
And there's families fighting families.
Yeah,
there's so much into it. And I can sum it up. It's a lot of that intergenerational trauma.
Yeah.
A lot of the violence up there.
Yeah.
People doing life in prison for murder.
Bro.
People getting murdered up there. It's just, you can look it up, and it's just it's
on all reservations.
it's a beautiful culture, but there's that part of it, but it's all over. And I don't look at it like that, like, oh, it's just us.
No.
Yeah, we do have the highest rate for suicide, but I look at it like through everybody, like everybody has it.
It is.
Everybody has it, and that intergenerational trauma. Yeah, it started when they call it. So there was 4 mind changers in that Well Variety book. They talked about the Black Book, which, no offense, the Bible, they call it, back then. There was a poem, I think, and a song, and I believe that song was that Bugs Bunny sang.
Yeah.
The one little, two little Indian, and they would, they would shoot everybody. And then there was the alcohol, but what they called it, the spirit, because in that alcohol there's a spirit that changed us. So when that came to us,
culture,
it just it was over. It was over. It was over.
Now, was there no alcohol before that?
Before they came?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were
just plant.
Just plant the medicine.
Plant.
Yeah, and there's tribes that, were against each other, I believe, or whatever, and but once that came, it just changed everything, and so when I look back at that and I been reading through that book, it's just, it was sad. And being with my uncle, he's a very, very ceremonial man. He walks that red road.
Yeah.
That's how he walks, and he teaches me a lot. And you talk about the location, getting relocated around,
Of course.
getting your land taken,
Yeah, bro.
somebody coming in your life and telling you, well, you can't practice this way, you can't pray that way, you can't sing, you can't use this medicine, you can't do any of that. That's from the devil, basically. Like, you need to do it our way, and
alcohol is literally the devil in liquid form.
Exactly.
I mean, you ever see anybody get violent off of?
Yeah, I was one of them. yeah. I was
not off the weed though.
Not off of plant-based stuff.
yeah.
Not very often.
No, not
Right,
very often. It
right,
reminds me of a
right.
song I saw Iron Maiden when I was like 15 years old. The one song they had, the white man came across the sea. He brought us pain and misery.
Oh, wow.
He brought us
Yeah.
Iron Maiden. I actually liked Iron Maiden.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm that old. You're that old.
Yeah,
though.
that old. Yeah.
You literally are the Iron Maiden era.
I'm the classic Iron Maiden era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you were in high school when Iron.
13. I remember my first concert, Triumph and Iron Maiden. I was 13 years old, getting on the bus.
You want to know what my first concert was? The Ramones.
Whoa, bro.
Oh, wow.
Maybe you shouldn't tell anybody that.
It was 1988.
Yeah.
I was in 8th grade.
Disco was on and happening.
Heck yeah.
The Ramones were, like punk rock was almost dead
Yeah.
at that time, but the Ramones were out for one last concert.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like they started all dying off after that, not long after that.
Yeah.
Overdosing or something, eh?
Man,
I mean, music was great in the 80s and 90s.
yeah, I listened to it, man. My mom, my grandma, in their blood, in their DNA is the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And the 70s, yeah.
Oh, my
70s,
God.
80s,
Oh,
90s.
man.
My mom will tell you like 50s
Man.
and 60s, but nah.
Yeah.
My mom loves Elvis.
You know what's cool? When me and my wife got married, begged her. I wanted 2 songs for our first dance, and one of them was, it was either 3. It was either between "Since I've Been Loving You" by Led Zeppelin, or it was "T for One" by Led Zeppelin, or it was "Little Wing" by Jimi Hendrix. And so I was begging her, and we got married to Little Wing. Our first dance was Little Wing.
Good for
Nice.
you.
Yeah, and it was beautiful.
Good for you for even remembering that, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Ours was 21 Questions by 50 Cent.
Yeah.
Bro, I don't even know what mine was.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Did you even have one?
I
Did
don't
you have a
know.
first dance?
I can't.
Did you have a full blown wedding with a reception?
full-blown wedding, reception, the whole 9 yards. We did a
Mm-hmm.
dance.
You did?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna have to ask her when I get home. Hopefully
Yeah.
she won't slap me.
What was our? You just have to do it like this. You
was
have
our
to do it
fir-
like this. Babe, what was our first dance again? What
Yeah,
was the song
yeah,
to our
yeah,
first
yeah.
dance again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She probably can't remember either. We're both the same like that.
Oh yeah.
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 Brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I'm the oldest, man. So from my mom, I have 3 sisters and 1 brother.
Mm-hmm.
Different dads.
Yeah.
And then from my dad, I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers.
Good for you,
And
man.
then I have a stepsister who's my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Nice big family.
whole
7,
tribe.
8 people.
Whole tribe.
That's nice.
Whole tribe. Yeah.
Are you guys all getting along? Is everybody
Now,
talking?
the siblings that have different dads, do any of them have Native American in them?
Yeah. So
It's on the father's side. So all of them.
Well, no, because this was they have different dads.
No.
Yes,
Oh,
he
I'm
has,
sorry.
he has
I'm
some
sorry.
that has
I'm
different
sorry. I'm
dads.
sorry.
yeah.
You're
So
right.
my mom, I hate to even call him that, but my stepdad that was in her life, he was his mom was from some tribe. I believe, I could be wrong, out of state. His dad was from Pechanga.
Mm-hmm.
His dad was from Pechanga.
Oh.
But I believe from that guy to his sister were I believe were disenrolled. I believe, or something, or not enough blood to be enrolled or something like that. And so my mom has 2 kids from him, and then she met my stepdad, had 2 kids from him, and then my stepdad raised me pretty much my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then, like I said, my dad was with my stepmom, 3 kids, and raised my stepdaughter, or my stepsister.
Sister, yeah.
And then my dad was with someone else, I don't know, and had my brother. And it was kind of like meeting my brother was kind of like I looked at it like a soap opera, basically, because I never knew him. I heard about him, and then finally we met, and we're pretty much identical. Yeah. But that's when my mom was with my sister's dad, that's when that first that trauma happened. That trauma happened, you know, and the whole story was, you know, that's when that trauma happened. That's when my mom lost custody of me and went to my dad. Yeah.
Not easy.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
Your stepmom, she's still alive, and
Yeah.
you have a relationship with her? at all?
Yeah. And then ever since my dad died, you know, it's gotten tighter, it's gotten closer, you know, and yeah, you know, and I love that woman, you know. That's,
Nice.
Yeah, I love that woman. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good stuff, man.
Great stuff.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
guy's a miracle, man. It's unbelievable,
We all are.
bro.
We
Good
all
for
are.
you. So you're working you're working on the reservation.
Yeah, what's really cool is our new clinic. It's huge, man. It's huge. It's on our reservation now, so I feel like I'm literally working, you know, for my people.
Yeah, you
know,
are.
I mean, I
You
am.
are.
You know, not just the Luiseño people. We serve, I think, 7 or 9 local tribes. So
Really?
anywhere from
Yes.
from Barstow
Yeah.
to Morongo to Torres Martinez, Pechanga, Cahuilla, and Santa Rosa.
We would love to be involved somehow.
Yeah.
We would love, the 3 of us would love to come on the reservation and do a talk if we can.
Yeah,
If you have that
yeah.
ability to invite
Yeah.
strangers on, or we'd love to. We'd love to join you somehow, bro.
Because again, that other generation, the older generation, you know, around your guys' age, you know,
Thanks,
my
buddy.
mom's age, sorry,
Appreciate it.
they know they were there when it all
Yeah,
happened, you
yeah.
know, and it's sad, you know, and it's still going on. It's still going on. There's kids up there young kids that are trying to. There was never no gang up there, for one. You know, there's a local gang in San Jacinto. It's been around for generations. But there was never no gang in Saboba. And now all of a sudden there's a gang in there, and they're running amok. Running amok. And it's that intergenerational trauma.
Yeah, bro.
You know, they get per cap, you know, start using drugs, get guns, and that's pretty much it. They call it the res life. You know, I called it being restitutionalized. You know, that's all you know what I mean? And a lot of kids that I've worked with, you know, their thing is, I'm going to get out of here. You know, I'm going to get out of here. Great, you know, get out of here. You know, and when you come back, you know, come back with your career and take care of the people.
Right.
You know,
That's what they got to do.
That's
They gotta
good
do.
stuff. Yeah, for sure, for real. I mean, it's rough. That's tough, and that's something that nobody except for reservation people will even understand, especially the ones that come from a wealthy tribe, right? Because I mean, not all tribes are wealthy.
Right, right.
You know, you go to other states and they're living some rough lives up there still.
They're still, in that poverty.
In the poverty.
Yep.
Yeah. And what ends up, so just want to kind of give you a little history, because we do get you know, people from those reservations. The good thing that has happened is that they everybody is allowed to get the insurance that they need now, so that they can get the help that we all deserve.
Exactly.
You know, like
exactly.
The one thing about addiction is it does not discriminate. You know, it blows through.
Same ending.
All of us.
Same ending.
Same ending.
Same ending, yeah.
Sounds to me like you and I kind of did the same program, because when you speak, you know, you speak the 12-step program that you speak is the one that I speak. Just for today. You know.
Yeah.
And it does not discriminate, man.
It doesn't, man. And
the ends are always the same.
Ends are
Shane,
the
do you know
same.
what they are?
Death,
Jails, institutions, and death.
Yeah.
or you're just stuck.
Or stuck.
Or you're stuck, you know. But there's always a way out, man.
There is a way out, man.
You know, I've seen some miracles. You know, we were sharing about that. Me and my uncle that I work with, there's a movement going on right now, a strong movement. And right now on my reservation, ever since I started the well variety for, you know, on the clinic, the sober, the ones that are staying strong, you know, that are part of the 12 steps, you know, and all that, they come to the, you know, we have a strong movement. There's about 3 or 4 women strong, and they take care of each other.
Nice.
And there's another elder who comes, he's a powwow dancer of like 30 something years in sobriety, comes from the 12 steps. You know, and we all meet together on Wednesdays for our well variety, and then later we go to our talking circle, you know. And then I was able to start a meeting on the reservation. There was a meeting before that. That's how it started. I was at a convention, 6 years ago or something, and this guy came up to me and goes, "Hey man, what happened to that meeting on the res?" I said, "Well, I don't know." And so that kind of got the idea going. And so
Good for you.
So I always come up with these good ideas. And so I was like, you know, I'm gonna do this. So I got with my buddy and I said, you want to help me start it? And we started it, and it you know, like a meeting, it blew up, it went down. We were the only meeting during COVID that was live that I knew of, you know, in person. And sometimes it was just 2 of us, and we're like, oh well, let's just end it. No one's here. But I have that commitment. That no matter what, I'm gonna keep that door open.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because for me, that idea was based off of this. So on the res, there's people that, you know, they don't like to go into town. You know, they call it town. Or they have no driver's license, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I have that meeting on the res so they can just ride their quads or whatever right there.
Yeah.
But what I wanted, bro, was elders or people from the res to come. And I wanted people from town that had that sobriety to bring it up here, and it would get, you know, people from the res more comfortable to come down. It's open that, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but it comes with that, it comes with the territory where a lot of Native brothers and sisters, they call it, I just learned this word from Victor, California recovery. So I was in a meeting one day, and this guy was like, he was a native guy. He goes, "Oh man, I have like 15 years off meth, but I drink, wine here and there." And I looked at him, but I had to realize, from Victor, it's kind of like that up here, and so so I had to kind of warn people from the regular meetings, like, hey man, this is kind of what they share on. I advise you not to say anything. And they're like, we understand, and I got friends that came a long way. They're not in recovery, and they're not doing meth no more. They smoke weed here and there, and I'm like, if that works for you, great. Great. You know what I mean? Great.
Hell yeah.
If that works for you, awesome, but for me, my goal is a lifer for this, you know what I mean? And when I go, I'm going to go clean and sober.
Yeah.
And so I walk this walk, and it's my walk. And that's what I struggled with a lot was, well, I'm native, half native, I'm half native, and I guess we're self-conscious or you know what I mean? Like, well, I don't have the ponytail. I don't wear red or blue all day, and I don't have the lingo like them, and I don't know the language that much and the songs but I go back and forth, and do I need to just do sobriety? Do I just need to do ceremony, all that? Or what do I do? But the truth is, I have my walk. I've found what's been working for me.
Yeah.
And the gift of that, which is awesome. They were sharing about that in a meeting the other day, was, having our gifts, and what's awesome is, working for Indian Health, there's not too many Native counselors at all.
No.
So, but when they come to the, for their intakes and stuff, they build that relationship with them, and Victor is solid in that. Victor is so solid in that. So when they say, I'm not raised culturally, I'm not raised in the tradition. Some of them say, I don't learn, I don't really want to practice or whatever. And so, I want to do recovery or whatever. Victor goes, well, I got the guy for you. And they'll come to me. And so that's what it is. The counselors will see them. They'll offer peer support. They'll come to me or the other peer support, and we'll do it all day with them, And so that's the gift I have, that I come from that world. I come from the 12 steps in recovery, and so I get to share that with them. I share that with them. And it's just a beautiful thing, man. And for me, my goal, my purpose in this is to break that cycle.
Yeah, Damon.
Break that cycle. Yeah. Looking at what my mom went through, looking at what my mom put us through, also looking at what she went through with her father.
Yeah. Yes.
And then looking at what I did in my kids, what I did in my son, and I struggle with that, man. I'll be honest with you, I struggle with that guilt with my son and my wife, and it's hard, man. I struggle with that, and but I make up for that because, man, like I'm a football coach today. I've watched my son, my little guy. I watched him win a championship. I watched my older son. Me and him as coach's team, we won the championship. And I get to be a part of that. And we just and I was never a part of that, man. And the first pregnancy, I destroyed that. I was loaded. Used his whole childhood basically, just ripped that apart from him, put him through that trauma. Same thing I went through with my dad, just not there, and when I was there, I was, loaded. The second baby, absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. Wasn't even there when he was born, and for my wife to tell me what he went through and what she went through with him was just like, that was the point where I wasn't using to get loaded no more. Like I was trying to numb everything, but there was no numbness.
Yeah.
And so now the only two feel, from depression, the guilt, those are the main ones, the shame, but the guilt and the depression, the anger, that summed it up to just two feelings. So now I'm just suicidal and I'm homicidal. And what was the trip was, and I heard this from a gentleman in recovery, when he was suicidal, he would use drugs and it would take him from that mind state, And so it kind of worked. And that's what I was doing. And from that point on, so my little guy was born January 31st, 2015. and wasn't there at all, you know. And my friend goes, "Hey man, your son was born. You know, your son's born. He you know, everything's okay." And I told him, I'm like, "Man, she's never gonna. There's no coming back from this. She's never gonna forgive me for this." He's born January 31st. April, I decided to show up at my grandma's house, thinking they're still living there, because I left them there. Yeah. I took off. I told my son, and I did this so many times, like, you know, what do you want to eat? I'll be back, and wouldn't come back. And that's what I did to them, you know. And so April, I showed up with the Easter basket, you know, and half-assed Easter basket that I probably, you know, so dope that I got fronted. You know, that was my MO, you know. And when he came off that trampoline, he seen me and we just broke down. Again, me and him broke down because that was the thing that I kept doing to him. You know, I'd go on these runs, get clean, see him, and I'd break down. And it always came back to them, my wife and the children. So I got out of there. I left. I got to go, son, you know. And either she called me or I called her, and she was letting me have it. You know, a pissed off woman, mother, just letting me have it, every name in the book. Later that night or the next night, I'm sitting in this filthy hotel floor, and she was calmly explaining to me that when he came home from the hospital, he got sick. And she went back to the hospital, I think Loma Linda or something like that. Yeah. And he was diagnosed with spinal meningitis. Spinal meningitis he was diagnosed with. And so mind you, that's what, 3-4 months? But I'm barely finding out about this. And I'm calmly just listening to her. And I believe that's what my higher power wanted for me, to sit there, like, no numbness, no meth was going to take that away. Like, you need to sit here and deal with that, face that. And, you know, all the years of her chewing me out, for her to calmly explain that to me was just, and I'm just uncontrollably just crying, you know. But again, I kept rinse and repeat using. Yeah. And that was from that point on to when I, you know, my sobriety is July 21st, 15. From that point on to when I went to the Betty Ford, I was on a suicide mission. And my mission was, the statistic is, for the people from my reservation, is my suicide by cop or they life in prison to some kind of violence or murder, you know, murder. And for me, that was my way out. You know, that was my way out for me. And I was with this relative of mine who was very, very active. Prison, you know, through prison, he was very active. And I knew that if I hung out with him and stayed with him, that was my way out. You know, and that was my way out. You know, my mom, my dad, my son, my grandma, man, my grandpa, all people too, you know, they're going to read about me in the newspaper, you know, and back then I was 105 pounds sucked up. So for me to go to prison for something very, very serious, you know, because there was, if I don't mind, I'll get into that situation, which also was the second thing in my life at that time that, like, you need to do something with your life, you know? And so I was going to become that statistic, you know, that's the path I was going. And so what happened, man, was this one day I was leaving the casino, because I basically lived in the casino, and I was with my cousin, and he was very active, you know, beefing with everybody, you know, and he was coming out of his house. I was sitting in his car, the back seat, and this truck pulled up in front of his house, like on the street, and he goes, "That's such and such, let's go." So we hop in the car, 100 miles an hour, down the expressway through traffic, and he goes, hand me the gun. No gloves on, no mask. I handed him the gun, and I'm just like, just scared, just terrified of what's going to happen. And I'm just hoping that the only hope I have in that time was we're going to get in a high-speed chase, which we had before, which almost ended and it's scary. We're going to get in a high-speed chase. And I'm hoping because it's raining, we're going to lose control and hit a pole, and that's it. I'm done, you know. Or if he does this, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. And I don't know if I can handle prison, especially being, you know, if you look at me, back then I was a dead giveaway. You know, if you know me and look at me, you'll see something's wrong, you know. So what happened, we're chasing that guy, and I hand him the gun, and it's at a stoplight. Carl's Jr.'s right there, and he rolls his window halfway down, and he leans over to shoot the guy. And the guy, he was waiting for him to roll down his window, and I seen him lean over, and the guy rolled down his window, and it happened to be the wrong guy. And so just that mountain of just stress just went off me, you know. And the guy goes, my cousin goes, well, if you were, what's his name, I was going to get you right now. You have no idea. And the guy goes, yeah, you weren't going to do anything. And all of a sudden, he kind of lifts up the gun again. I'm just like, oh, my God. And he didn't shoot him. He didn't shoot him, you know. And like good old addicts, we pull up to my Connect's house, and my Connect goes, you need to bring him inside, dude. Like, he can't be in front of my house. And I told my Connect, I said, hey, bro, like, whatever you do not let me leave with him, because there's what just happened right now. And from that point on, man, it was like, to this day, that was my life at 27 years old. 27 years old, that was my life, you know, and to working the, you know, going through the insanity of the first step, and then going to the second step, the third step, I believe what's at the 11th step, continue to make that conscious contact or seek.
Yep.
Through all that, you know, I understand to the fullest now that for one, I believe in the power of prayer. And for number one is that there's a God in my life, and he's been with me my entire life. You know, he's taken care of me my entire life. Because I was, from my mom, my grandma, and them, there was no God. There was no spirituality. There was nothing like that. The only time I heard God in my life through my mom and my, you know, whatever, was, you know, God dang it, Damon, you know, and you know, and that was it. What was the trip was my dad. When my dad got clean and sober, he got into AA or NA, and we'd go to meetings, and we'd be at this restaurant, you know, like a Jack in the Box, and he would pray. He would pray. And so that was actually the first time I, you know, looking back, that's when, you know, God was in my life, you know. But now looking back at it, he's been there for me and always will be for me, you know. And it was just, you know, I keep that stuff right in front of my head, you know what I mean? And that's what keeps me going. And that's what I try to share with the youth, you know, because they want to dress like they're gangbangers and, oh, you know, this and that, and I'm this guy, you know, my dad's this and that. And so when we go and take, you know, that resiliency and you know, when we go and take, you know, how to change your life, you know, with the different grants and that are going on, all I know how to do is share my story with them. And I have that relationship with these kids where I tell them, hey, man, like, this is what I went through. So at any given moment, your life's going to change. And hopefully one of them will say, man, you know what? I'm not going to go to that party tonight. You know, I'm not going to go to that party tonight, you know, and then something pop off and they weren't there, you know, and that's what I want to reach to these kids or anybody, no matter who they are, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damon, good for you, bro. You're changing lives, man.
Trying to,
it's
man.
Important,
you know,
and you're doing it from.
I'm trying to.
Here's the thing, you have your people.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has to have their people. That's life.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking care of your people. That's very, very important.
Yeah.
It's just, it is.
It is. You know, but for me, it's everybody, man.
No, I'm not disagreeing.
You know?
You're not.
No, but I hear you.
A stranger, but
now
you're focused.
Yeah, now being, you know, working for the Indian Health Clinic and that's what, you know, we serve the people.
Serve the people, bro.
So now it's like, okay, and what's, you know, from being a counselor to now, every single day, every hour is a newcomer, and they all have the same trauma.
Yeah.
These young women get hooked up with these guys from the local gang, you know, in town, and that's what their moms used to do. Yeah. And so they get with these local gang members. The gang members use them for their per cap, right? They go to prison. Yeah. They're putting money on their books, and then they get with their homie or whatever, and then they have kids from them. Then they can't take care of those kids, so it's just rinse and repeat. Jesus. You know, and it's just like, you know, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's terrible. It's so terrible. And I found myself getting frustrated. Like, well, I want to tell these women or these men, like, what the hell are you, like, what are you doing? Like what are you doing? But
everyone's got to find their own way.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
it.
And unfortunately in this thing of recovery, it's some of them don't get it till they're gone.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but you're a beacon of light, man. That's what's important. When they're ready, you're there.
Exactly.
That's it.
You know, my sponsor, he taught me that, man. And my sponsor, I call him General Custer. He's like 70, 80, almost 80 years old. He has like almost 40 years in sobriety. And we, you know, when I call him, I go, "What's up, Custer, General Custer?" And he goes, "What's up, you a dirt worshiper?" But we have that bond.
Yeah.
And we have that bond. But he taught me, he goes, you know, you can't stop anybody from their bottom. You know, you can't stop them. You know, who are you to stop them? And it's just terrible. It's
all we
sad.
can do is just you know, show them a different way by living by example.
Yeah.
You know, and then hey, make suggestions. You know,
Right. That's all there are, suggestions.
Yeah.
You know.
it's just suggestions. You don't have to follow them.
Right.
But if you want what we have, you'll do what we do. Or if you or you can keep doing what you're doing and continue getting what you're getting.
And that insanity.
That insanity. I mean, try something different.
Yeah. But I believe it just goes back to that intergenerational trauma.
I agree 100%.
You know, I can't do it. I met a lady last night who she kept talking about water, you know, water, and I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, water, and she goes, no, PCP. So she was straight up. She goes, I'm this is how I am. This is who I am. Like, you ain't gonna change me. Like, this is how I'm gonna die. Like,
wow.
She goes, I haven't been in the moon yet. I'm like, oh my, damn, that's hardcore.
I didn't think PCP
You know what
was
I mean?
out there anymore. She's got to be
Everything's still out there.
Everything's
Really?
out there.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's all bunk. It's
Yeah,
all
it's all
bunk.
probably bunk.
You know, and it's
Bunk.
bunk. Yeah, drywall.
Only people from the IE say bunk.
Yeah.
I grew up out there.
Yeah.
I went to Redlands High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just all bunk now, you know.
Bunk.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine. He went back out after like 10 years, and now he's in and out, and now he's home. And I call him every day. You know, what's going on, man? And I told him, look, dude, I know you're loaded. Just answer and let me know you're okay. You know. And I'm like, how? What's it like, man? Oh, it's cheap. It's bunk. You know, and everything's cut with that. With that new pandemic, fentanyl.
Fentanyl, yeah.
Cut with fentanyl now, and so it's just, you know, and the big thing on the res with the youngsters is a few years ago was whippets.
Yeah.
Whippets. They find them all over. Whippets, and then Xanax, and now it's vapes. Now it's the tobacco, the vapes.
Yeah.
And for the older guys, or you know, it's fentanyl.
Yeah.
Fentanyl. All the old heroin addicts are all on fentanyl now.
Fentanyl now.
And that's what's sad. Me and my wife were talking about that. Like, man, bro, in the last year was very hard. We had a guy, man. He was trying to do this thing. Longtime heroin addict. He got clean and sober, and went back to using. First thing took him out, fentanyl. Then, like, man, the next day, me and Victor were talking about him. And Victor gets a phone call from another patient that they found him OD'd on fentanyl. I think it was fentanyl. About 4 months later, another girl, fentanyl.
Yeah.
Fentanyl.
Fentanyl.
And then a little after that, another young kid, suicide. So it's
brutal out
it's
there.
Brutal, man. It's brutal.
Yeah, 300 people are dying every single day from fentanyl, man, and it's no joke. That's truly why we exist. This podcast exists. You know, I lost my son-in-law to fentanyl, and I won't stop talking, man. I won't stop stop putting it out there, and you know, it's gonna take us as a community of recovering people and people who have lost people, which at this point is a lot of people, man.
Yeah.
To try to make a difference.
Yeah. And
Damon, that's what's a really good podcast, man.
Yeah, you're a breath of fresh air, man.
Appreciate you coming down and sharing your experience, strength, and hope with us, dude. Really good.
Yeah.
time.
If you don't mind me sharing, is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So that's pretty much. You know, I apologize to everybody or you if that was too much of the mess. You know, what it was like. You know.
Yes.
So what happened, man? What happened was in Betty Ford. Again, it went back to the family, back to my family. I was in there about 2 months, right? A month and a half, let's say. Every day, every Sunday was family day. You know, family day. And they're flying from Alaska, from everywhere, coming to see their families. And it was all about me. Why aren't you coming to see me, my girlfriend, you know? No car, you know, in and out, you know, out of mom's house, you know, because all the crap I put her through, you know. And one Sunday, I was talking in the morning. I said, you going to come see me? And she's like, oh, probably not. All right, whatever. And I was pissed off. And this counselor takes me outside, 125 degrees in Palm Springs, outside, middle of the center. And he goes, he's a Christian man. He goes, you need to give yourself to God, to Jesus, man, or to God, you know, your higher power, your creator. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. And he puts his hand on me and he prays for my family. He prays for my wife because there was some stuff going on with my child. And I get these emergency phone calls. And so anyways, he was like, you need to pray, you know, we'll pray for your family, you know, for the well-being of your family. So I said, hey, man, I'm going to the gym over here. You know, if anybody comes to see me, I'm at the gym. About 15 minutes later, he goes, hey, man, there's somebody here for you, some beautiful woman. So I'm like, no way. And I ran back to the hall, and I'm nervous. Nobody's there. What the hell? And then all of a sudden, my little boy, I think I don't know, 5, I don't know what he was, comes out of the bathroom, you know, and he comes out, and then she comes walking out. And I believe now to this day, that was my first experience with a power greater than myself, you know, and I'm like, this thing is real. My wife was telling me, you know, your son prays for you. And so he prays at night. So I would go to my dorm and, you know, when he was, you know, at home and I'd pray, you know what I mean? And making that connection with him. The culture came to my life when this woman, who's now my boss, she would come to see me. And normally it was this woman named Curry. She's like my mother. She's been my counselor since day one. She's like my mother to me. She didn't come that day. The other woman came, a counselor, and she brought me sage. And she brought me some prayer beads. And she goes, you need to get back to your roots. There's a pond out there. Go to that water and pray. I don't know how to use sage, you know. Well, you just burn it and you smudge yourself down. So I'd be out there doing it, you know, and everybody's watching, you know, whatever. And took me to this meeting in Morongo. And again, like being in the Betty Ford Center, I'm surrounded by pilots, doctors, you know, whoever. And I'm the only guy in there that looked like me. So I'm still running off of wearing that mask. You know, well, you don't know who I am. I'm from Saboba. I'm from San Jacinto, blah, 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 blah. And running around like that. But they took me to, there was a spiritual advisor. He's a white guy. And he knew some other people in Morongo. Went to this meeting in Morongo. And I met this good man. And the meeting was like a free-for-all meeting. You know, that crosstalk and people would just start, you know, singing, you know, bird songs, native songs. And he had the drum, and he was singing the drum. That's the first time I heard that. But then when I got out of treatment, or in rehab, you know, my girlfriend didn't have a house at the time, you know, and one time it was in and out of a hotel, you know, and I'm still in treatment, you know, and I had to make that sacrifice to go back. And our goal was to find a house. And she found a house, man. She found a house right across from my son's school, and that was our prayer. You know, that was our prayer. And I went to the Betty Ford for July 21st all the way to December. And that's when I started taking back my life, because when I went to rehab, I owed about 2 different connects. And one of them was a big deal. Was a big deal. And I'm so shocked no one ever took me out for a debt like that. So I signed over power of attorney of my checks to my connect, because that's the only way I guaranteed his money. Whoa. Yeah. And so for about a couple of months, he was getting my checks, and he goes, I'm going to hold on to it, and when you get out, we'll go through the math. No, just take it all and knock off my debt. And I said, look, bro, I owe one more connect, and you need to take what I owe you and take it to my wife, you know? Now, he's a heroin addict. So he's taking his time. My girlfriend's chewing me out. I need help, whatever. And so I said, I'm done with this. And they had all kinds of like case managers, and I went, they had a, what are they called? A notary. They had a notary person there. So I went to them and I said, look, I need to take back my money. I need to take back my, you know, and I took it back. Connect calls me, blowing up the facility. Like, they're going to kick me out, you know? And I told him, hey man, like I have a life, you know? And so, you know, took care of my family. And what's funny is all kinds of stuff happened my first year out of treatment. So he was trying to extort me for a lot of money. And so it ended up coming to where he came to my house and it got physical and, you know, all this stuff. And I stayed clean and sober through that. In my mind, I'm like, you know, I'm going to go get people I know and we're going to handle
Finish
this.
them off, yeah.
And I'm living that way. And the thing is, I was in a men's meeting and one of my friends, goes, I was telling him the story. He goes, bro, you don't live that way no more. You don't live that way no more. You take care of your family. You take care of your family. And I was like, okay, this is for real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is for real. And so that taught me in the rooms of recovery, it was my higher power, right? My higher power, you know, God, creator. One of my friends, he lost his parents in 1 month and he was in a meeting. Bro never went to meetings for a long time and he was in a meeting. And that told me that the higher power works through people. The power is in that rooms. Another brother of mine, a friend of mine, lost his nephew to a drunk accident, I believe. He was in a meeting, you know. So that told me when I go through that, I know where to go.
Yep.
And so when my dad died, I walked through that. First thing I did was I prayed, called my wife, called my sponsor, called my grand sponsor, and walked through that clean and sober. You know, and when my cousin passed away, you know, walked through that clean and sober. What's a trip was when I got diagnosed, I had a walking pneumonia for 2 weeks, and I wasn't reading my Just for Today no more. I wasn't praying anymore, and went to the hospital. The next morning, the doctor goes, and come here, you know, I've been through a lot of stuff in life. You know, I was always the one that got away. Always when I got away, and there was a lot around a lot of violent stuff, and so I've been through a lot, you know, and so to have a doctor tell you, Damon, you could have died, and I just started crying, and what was beautiful was I was at the Eisenhower Hospital, and from the view you can see the Betty Ford, and so once I felt better, I had my little routine where I go by myself, meditate, listen to reggae, because reggae I learned from my dad. And it's not about smoking weed, it's about what they sing about. And so I was listening to reggae and listening to Little Wing by Jimi Hendrix, and I started getting that spirituality back. And there I am again, fighting for my life in Rancho Mirage. So that place, the Betty Ford, has a special place in my heart, you know, and so I give back to that place. But that's what I've been missing, and that's what I found in the Betty Ford Center this last run was a power greater than myself. And since then, no matter what I've gone through, no matter if I act out of a character defect, no matter what situation it is, I know that my higher power, you know, has it taken care of, you know. And it's just been beautiful, man. It's been beautiful, you know. And the last year or so, last 2 years, I got certified in my thing. And then I got one of the greatest gifts was you know, in our culture, when someone gives you an eagle fan or feather, yes, that's our highest honoring for what you do. It's about being a warrior,
yeah,
not fighting in battle, but
I got a feather in my car.
Oh, beautiful, taking care of your people and the community, your family. And so I got honored with that. And people continue to bless me with these things, you know. And my uncle taught me that it's those are all instruments and tools. It's the man that's behind that. You know, that's behind that, you know, and so like you guys have this podcast, but it's, you know, it's about what's inside your heart while you guys are getting it out there, you know. And so the following year or whatever, a couple years later, me and my wife's goal was to finally buy a house, and that's part of recovery. You become a productive member of society.
Yep.
And we finally bought a home.
Yeah.
Bought a home, and man, we're going on a year in December, and every day I wake up, I'm like, this is crazy. We're in a nice neighborhood. My older son can ride his bike around. You know, we got him into a very, very good school, and that was part of our goals. You know, and as long as I continue to apply what works for me in my life,
you're gonna break this cycle, bro.
I'm gonna continue to break that cycle.
Yeah, man. Good
you
for
know,
you.
And I've made some beautiful connections. You know, like now and in Rancho Mirage, and I met what's a trip. What I love is I feel like I'm a hero in the town because there's a guy I met who's in recovery now. I'm not gonna break his anonymity, but he's a really huge underground music artist, rapper, And big.
You helped
I
him.
met him at the Betty Ford Center, and I got to share my story in front of him, and we became brothers in recovery. And so when I tell my son trips out, like, you know him, no way, Dad. And
good for you, bro.
And so I share that with the youth. If you guys, are people in recovery, and I never thought it'd be, if you asked me 9 years ago, would I be doing any of this? I'm like, yeah, right. You know what I mean? Especially my addiction. Like, yeah, you're killing my buzz, dude. And it's just opened up beautiful doors. And I know the Creator is going to open up more for me. I believe in that, 100%. And again, through the lodge, through recovery, through the men in my life in recovery, my sponsor, and it goes back to the basics, recovery, meeting steps. What I lack on meetings today, live meetings, in-person meetings, I believe I make up in being a service to the Creator.
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
You
can absolutely do that.
Yeah,
That's like, one of the big parts, right? To me, the meetings are where we get our social aspect of it, but the being of maximum service to God and others is that's the real deal. That's how we get out of self.
Because that's what someone did for us.
Yeah.
Being in treatment and having H&I is huge on my life.
Nice.
Having somebody in H&I come and take the time out of their day.
Yeah.
Not looking for, just coming in on, because someone did that for them.
Yep.
And so that's how I give back. It's just giving back. And a lot of it too, bro, is that's how I make my amends. So going to this school called Noli Indian School up in Saboba, that's how I make my amends to the families I've heard up there, to the wreckage I caused and up in that reservation. That's how I make my living amends.
Yeah.
And the biggest one was to make that amends to my wife. And she's like, I forgive you. It's done. Just, we're talking one day and she was, if you're trying to make up for lost time, I said, and I told her, you know what, like, I'm always going to make up for lost time. And that's how I do it. Those little amends, making doing the dishes, cleaning up, all that, and yeah, it's just been beautiful. It's been beautiful, man, Yeah.
Well, bro, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
You have an incredible story. Keep doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You're definitely doing God's work, man.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, dude, we really appreciate you.
Great story.
Yeah.
Great story.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Just
man.
full of hope.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.